The first thing you should probably know about me is that I've spent almost half my life standing under soft track lighting, surrounded by silk and lace and the quiet rustle of tissue paper. My name's Julie. I'm 46, and for the last 20 years I've worked at the same higher-end women's undergarments boutique. My life is basically organized by seasons of lingerie, spring pastels, summer brights, fall jewel tones, winter black and champagne. And in those 20 years, I've had one recurring experience so often that it stopped being surprising and started feeling almost normal. A man walks in. He hesitates for half a second, like there's an invisible force field at the threshold. His eyes flick over the mannequins in satin chemises, the wall of pantyhose and tights, the display of slips and boy shorts. He does a quick scan to see who else is in the store. Then he approaches the counter, clears his throat, and says something like, "Hi, I'm, shopping for my wife." That's my cue. From the outside, it probably just looks like good customer service. I ask what size she wears, what colors she likes, how tall she is, whether she prefers sheer or opaque. But over time, I got good, really good, at telling who was actually shopping for a partner and who was shopping for themselves. The ones who were really here for their wives or girlfriends usually lit up when they talked about them. They knew sizes, brands, which styles she'd called itchy, and which ones she wore until the elastic gave up. The ones who were here for themselves. Their eyes slid away. Their answers were vague. They took a little too long to respond, like they were translating my questions into something that fit the story they'd rehearsed. So at some point, I just stopped playing along. I'd walk them over to the pantyhose wall or the panties table, and when we were standing shoulder to shoulder, I'd lower my voice and say, as matter-of-factly as if I were asking about fabric softener, "Is this really for your wife? Or is it actually for you?" You would not believe how many men freeze when they hear that. Some got defensive. A few got offended. One guy actually sputtered, "Excuse me?" Like I'd insulted his grandmother. That's when I learned to follow it up with the line that always softened things. My role here is to make sure you get the right style and the right fit. If it's really for you, I want to know so I can help get you the right size. That's all. And here's the thing. Once I'd said that, 9 times out of 10, their shoulders dropped. They'd exhale like they'd been holding their breath since the parking lot. And they'd admit it. Sometimes just with a nod, sometimes in a rush of words, like they were afraid. If they didn't confess fast enough, they'd lose their nerve. In 20 years, I've lost count of how many of those conversations I've had. But it's at least a few every day, without fail. Men wanting panties, pantyhose, slips, sometimes dresses, sometimes heels, sometimes the whole package, lingerie, makeup, jewelry. Men who had been told their whole lives that these things weren't for them, and my response has always been the same. To me, it's just clothes, I'd say, holding up a pair of silk boy shorts to the light. Traditionally, women wear them, but they're really just clothes. Anyone can wear what they want. Some men would blink at me like I'd just cracked a window in a room they didn't realize was stuffy. Some would smile so big it was almost heartbreaking. A few would still huff and insist it was for their wife, even as I handed them a size that matched their shoulders, and not the imaginary woman at home. After a while, I got curious. Not just in the professional, how do I help this customer way, but in a human way. What did it feel like to be so drawn to silky fabrics and delicate trims, and then be told over and over that it made you weird or wrong or unlovable? I started to realize that if a partner of mine ever wanted to wear these things, it wouldn't bother me at all. Honestly, I thought it would be kind of sweet. Vulnerable, in a way. Like color-coding your feelings and then stepping out into the world anyway. So I started asking a little more, gently. If a guy seemed open to talking, I'd say, "Do you have anyone in your life who knows?" Or, "How long have you liked this kind of thing?" A few of them really opened up. We'd end up talking for 20 minutes while I showed them different styles, like I was their lingerie therapist, And yes, I went on a few dates with some of them. They were awkward mostly. We'd sit across from each other at some casual place, pick at appetizers, and tiptoe around the elephant in the room, that I'd first met them while helping them pick out panties in a size that matched their hips, not their imaginary wives. There were some sweet moments, but no real spark. No connection that made me forget about the clock on the wall or the way my phone felt heavy in my bag. Until Riley. The day he walked into the store is burned into my memory as clearly as the layout of the bra wall I'd just re-merchandised that morning. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind where the air conditioning hums a little louder because there aren't many customers to drown it out. I was restocking a display of Wolford pantyhose, high-end, silky, the kind that feel like a whisper sliding over your skin, when I heard the door chime. I looked up, and there he was. Tall, broad-shouldered, an easy crooked smile. Dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it on the way in. He wore a plain gray t-shirt that still managed to cling in all the right places and a pair of well-worn jeans. He had that relaxed, masculine energy that makes you think of slow Sunday mornings and someone else carrying the heavy boxes. "Hi," he said, stepping inside. "I'm, looking for some pantyhose? Wolford control top specifically, for my girlfriend." There it was, the line. But something about the way he said it made my heart give a weird little hop. I wiped my hands on my black slacks, smoothed my teal blouse out of habit, and walked over. "Of course," I said. "You came to the right place. Do you know what size she wears? Or her height and weight? That helps with Wolford sizing." He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. 20 years in retail had trained me to notice the tiniest flinch. "Well, she's, He glanced at the hose display, then back at me. "About my height? Maybe." I hid my smile and shifted into my little diagnostic routine, asking him questions quickly, like I was scanning a boarding pass. "What's her favorite color to wear? Sheer or more opaque? Does she usually wear a control top, or is that new for her? How often does she wear pantyhose? Daily, just for events?" His gaze lost focus for a second, like he was trying to improvise a script someone else had written. Black, mostly. And, she wears them to work? Sometimes, I think." I knew. In my bones, I knew. So I went for the direct route. "What's your height and weight?" I asked, keeping my voice light. His eyebrows shot up. "Mine?" "Yeah," I said. "For sizing. Wolford runs a little specific." He cleared his throat. "I'm 6'2", 205. I almost squealed. Not because of the numbers themselves, but because they were so unapologetically him. Beefcake stats, basically. I swallowed the sound and nodded like this was any other transaction. "Got it." I turned to the wall and pulled a couple of packages, flipping them over to double-check the size chart. I picked out the size that would hug every inch of his height and weight and brought them over. "I think these would work for you," I said, handing him a pair. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "For you." His eyes dropped immediately to the label. I could see the flicker of confusion, then worry, pass over his face. The size was nowhere near what you'd buy for an average woman, unless you were dating an Amazonian basketball player. He laughed, a quick, nervous sound. "Wow, that's a big size. She's not that." I cut him off gently. "Hey, if these are really for your girlfriend, I'm sorry for assuming otherwise," I said, meeting his eyes. "But if they are for you, I don't want you to waste your money buying a size that won't fit you. Besides, you are going to look so good wearing them, and I think it's hot." I swear, the world shrank to the space between us in that moment. He stared at me, stunned, like he was waiting for the punchline. Then he tried to laugh it off, to retreat back to the safety of the script. No, they're really for my girlfriend," he said, smiling too wide. "I mean, unless you are serious about that? About me looking good in them?" There it was, the fragile, hopeful question underneath everything. I nodded, slow and deliberate. "I'm serious," I said, "and I'm being honest." I felt this sudden streak of boldness rise up in me, something fizzy and bright that I didn't try to tamp down. "Why don't you show me?" I added, "after we get some dinner." For a heartbeat, he didn't say anything. Then his whole face changed. That smile, the real one this time, big and unguarded, lit him up from the inside. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I'd like that." He ended up buying 3 pairs of Wolford control-top pantyhose in different colors, black, cocoa, and a deep navy that looked expensive just sitting in the box. I also managed to talk him into some silk boy shorts and a simple half-slip, the kind that glides under clothes like it's not even there. "Trust me," I said, ringing him up. "Options are good." We agreed to meet in an hour at a bar down the street from my condo. I finished my shift with one eye on the clock, hands straightening displays on autopilot while my brain played back every detail of his smile. The bar was one of those cozy neighborhood spots, worn leather booths, neon signs that had been humming since before I could legally drink, the scent of fries and grilled onions hanging in the air. When I walked in, he was already there in a corner booth, 2 sodas sweating on the table and a basket of fries between them. "Hey," he said, standing up halfway, like he couldn't decide whether to hug me or not. I slid into the booth across from him. "Hi," I said. "So, Riley, right?" He laughed. "Yeah, and you're Julie." We started with burgers and small talk, work, music, how he'd moved into town a few years ago and still used his GPS for everything. But eventually, the conversation curved back to the topic that had been hovering in the space between us since the store. "So," I said, dipping a fry in ketchup, "how long have you been into all this?" I gestured vaguely, meaning pantyhose and silky things and all the stuff sitting in that chic little shopping bag by his leg. He stared at the table for a second, tracing a circle in the condensation from his soda with one finger. "Honestly," he said, "since I was a kid, I used to sneak my mom's tights out of the laundry basket. It always felt right, comforting. And then I hit high school and realized pretty quickly that it was the kind of thing you're not supposed to talk about." I nodded, letting him take his time. "I've tried telling people," he went on, "girlfriends, women I really liked. Every single time, as soon as I say the words, 'I like to cross-dress,' it's like a trapdoor opens. They're gone. They either make a joke out of it, or they decide I'm secretly gay, or they just can't handle it. I've had women tell me it's disgusting, that I should grow out of it." His mouth twisted on the last words. "That sounds exhausting," I said quietly. "It is," he said. "So I stopped dating for a while. I just focused on work, the gym, watching Netflix with my cat. I figured it was easier to be alone than to watch someone's face change when I tell them the truth." He looked up at me then, eyes searching. "And then I walk into your store," he said, "ready to do the whole, 'it's for my girlfriend' thing. And you just ask me, straight up. And then you say you think I'd look good wearing them. Like it's the most normal thing in the world." "The biggest hurdle kind of evaporated, huh?" I said, smiling. He let out a breathy laugh. "Yeah, in an instant. I couldn't believe it didn't bother you. That you actually liked it. That you thought it was harmless fun." "Because it is," I said. "You in pantyhose or a slip or whatever doesn't hurt anybody. It's just clothes. Half the world wears them." He watched me like he was waiting for a catch that never came. "So," I said after a while, "how do you usually like to dress when you're, doing your thing?" He blushed, just a little. "Honestly, I like silky stuff. Slips, dresses, pantyhose. I don't usually go outside like that, though. I just stay in, watch TV, read. It makes me feel calmer, more like myself somehow." "Good," I said. "You deserve that." We stayed at the bar for hours, talking about everything from childhood cartoons to our worst jobs. His were mostly in construction and warehousing. Mine were all retail. He was funny, in this self-deprecating way that made me feel like we were already in on the same joke. By the time he walked me back toward my condo, the night air was cool and the streetlights were coming on, casting little halos on the pavement. "You really meant what you said?" he asked suddenly, hands shoved into his pockets. "About what?" I said. "About thinking I'd look good," he said. You know. He nodded toward the bag he was carrying. I stopped on the sidewalk and faced him. "Yes," I said simply. "I meant it." He swallowed. "Okay," he said. "Then, yeah, I'd like to show you. Sometime." "Sometime like now?" I asked, raising a brow. His eyes widened. "Are you serious?" I smiled. "I have a comfy couch, a decent TV, and a closet full of clothes that won't judge you," I said. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But if you want to feel how those pantyhose actually fit, I'm not going to be scandalized." He laughed, the tension breaking. "You might be the most dangerous woman I've ever met," he said. "Only in the best way," I replied. "I'm not going to go into detail about what happened next, because some things are better left as soft-focus memories. But I will say this. There was something incredibly tender about watching this 6'2", broad-shouldered man relax into himself as he pulled on clothing that made him feel at peace. The way his posture shifted, the way his face softened, the way he kept glancing at me like he was waiting for disgust and only seeing admiration. That night was the start of something I hadn't realized I'd been missing. A relationship where honesty wasn't some dramatic confession, but just the default setting. Over the next months, weekends became our little sanctuary. Sometimes we'd both dress up in silky, lacy, frilly dresses with sheer pantyhose and heels and makeup. We'd put on music, dance around my living room, and take ridiculous selfies that never saw the light of Instagram. Other times, it was just Riley in a simple soft dress or a slip, barefaced and relaxed, curled up against me while we watched bad movies and argued about plot holes. There were also plenty of days when he just wanted to be regular Riley. Jeans, t-shirt, scruffy jawline. We'd go grocery shopping, run errands, argue about which brand of hummus was superior. And then there were the days in between, when he'd sprawl across the bed in nothing but silk shorts, remote in hand, his feet tangled in the throw blanket. Every version of him felt true. Every version felt allowed. And that became the foundation of us. This understanding that he could show up in any of his skins, masculine, feminine, somewhere in between, and I'd still be there, rolling my eyes at his terrible puns, but reaching for his hand all the same. We talked a lot, too, about how hard it had been for him to trust that someone could see all of him and not flinch. About how, in my line of work, I'd met so many men like him, but he was the first one where the spark went both ways. About how strange and wonderful it was that a pair of control-top pantyhose had basically handed us each other. One lazy Sunday, we were driving to pick up takeout. He was in joggers and a hoodie, I was in leggings and an oversized sweater, when he pulled up to a red light and leaned over to kiss my hand. "You know I love you, right?" he said. "I had a suspicion," I teased. "Well, I do," he said. "And I'm still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to decide this is too weird or too much or whatever." I turned my hand so our fingers laced together. "If I was going to run," I said, "I would have sprinted out of my own store that first day. You're stuck with me now." He smiled, eyes crinkling at the corners. "Good," he said. "That's exactly what I want." What he doesn't know, and what I'll admit to you, here, like this is my own little confession booth, is that a few weeks ago, he forgot to lock his glove compartment. We were parked outside my building, and he'd asked me to grab his sunglasses before we headed to the park. I opened it, and there it was, a small, velvet ring box tucked beside his registration papers and a spare phone charger. My breath caught. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew what it was. I closed the compartment gently and handed him his sunglasses like my heart wasn't doing cartwheels in my chest. He has no idea that I know. He's probably rehearsing some grand gesture in his head, some perfect moment. And I'm going to let him have that. Because he deserves it. Because we both do. But between you and me, the answer is already yes. It's been yes since the night he stood in my store, holding a box of pantyhose in his big hands, and asked if I really thought he'd look good in them. I support Riley. I will love him no matter what he does or what he wears. Whether he's in jeans and a t-shirt at a barbecue, sheer pantyhose and a slip on my couch, or silk shorts while we binge watch some show we pretend not to care about, he's still him. Kind, funny, soft-hearted, mine. If you've listened this far, maybe there's something in this story that brushes up against your own life. Maybe you're someone who loves clothes that the world tells you aren't for you. Maybe you're dating someone who's scared to show you all the parts of themselves. Maybe you've been taught to recoil at anything that doesn't fit inside a neat little box. Here's what I want to leave you with. Don't close yourself off to possibilities because of what you think everyone thinks you should think. Seriously, there are so many unspoken rules floating around out there about what men should wear, what women should wear, what straight people should do, what queer people should do, what's normal, and what's too much. Half of them are made up, and the other half are marketing. At the end of the day, it's just fabric, just color and texture and shape. What matters is how someone treats you, whether they listen, whether they tell you the truth, even when it makes their voice shake. There's a giant world of possibilities out there, full of people who don't fit the mold and don't want to. You don't have to understand everything right away to be kind. You don't have to share someone's preferences to respect them. And you definitely don't have to let other people's voices drown out your own. So if you take anything from my 20 years under soft boutique lights and one unforgettable man in a pair of very nice pantyhose, let it be this. Make those decisions yourself. Choose curiosity over fear, comfort over judgment, love over rules that never loved you back. You never know. The person who changes your life might walk into your world buying lingerie for their girlfriend, and walk out holding your heart in their hands instead.